topic as our topic as mentioned and as it has been advertised over and over again, our topic today is budgeting process, itemization, and projection. Welcome once again to the webinar. Bonimak is my name, and I want to take us through the learning objectives this beautiful day. We'll be looking at the key terms that we have used in this topic and in the presentation. We'll be looking at the types of budgets, goals of the budgeting process, and steps one needs to take in budgeting processes. We'll be looking at budget itemization and taking, for example, using the CDG developed template of the WMI, and also the budget projection that some of us do struggle with oftentimes when we are doing the application. We'll do some takeaways from this presentation, and we'll have the last session, which is the Q&A, that will be allowing you to ask quite a number of questions. So what are some of the key terms we'll be looking at here is budgeting. And what is budgeting? Everybody talks about budgeting, and everybody wants to know and want to control the finances in one way or the other. So in the simple terms, budget refers to an estimation of revenue and expenses that made for a specific future period of time, and that is usually an ongoing expenses or a periodic expenses, and can be done with individual focus that in turn will be used to reevaluate the progress of what you're trying to accomplish. And also budgeting process, as the word is a process of reviewing the past, the planning, budget, and the future to forecast the revenue that you have, and also look at how you will spend it. This helps you to analyze the budget data and establish a goal for the future to better control your expenses. The other thing is budget itemization as used in this presentation. It is an itemized budget. An itemized budget is a budget that has been allocated individually for a specific items. For example, we do always receive this lump sum categories of budgeting. But when we talk about itemization, we are talking about segmenting those individual items. Like, for example, I want to make 10 banners, each banner will cost me this. Transport for this number of people for the number of days. Training, electricity. Now, some people in a category can alarm the electricity, water, postage as utilities. Yes, it is. They are all utilities. But when it comes to itemization, we are talking about breaking them down and making them one by one as an item. And then budget projection is referred to the process of predicting the future revenues and expenses that are likely to be met in the business, or in your project, or in your organization, or simply your company, or even your daily life. You know, we receive salaries every month, but along the way, in the week's time, it's all gone. We have not projected. Whereas we projected, we know we are receiving this, but at the end of the day, you do not project how you're gonna spend it, and just gets blown off just in a blink of an eye. So what are some of the types of budget that we know? Yeah, we have the master budget, we have the cash budget, and we have operating budget. Then lastly, we have capital budget. All these four types of budget has got other subtitles attached to them. So a robust budget framework is built around the master budget, considering the operation of the operational budget, capital budget, expenditure budget, which in this case cash budget. Then the cash budget the capital budget, the operation, the daily operation of the entity, all these are categorized in the budget types. So what is a master budget? A master budget is the main major budget that are developed for a period of time. Then there are other segmented budgets that comes under the master budget. Then the operating budget is for your daily activity, the daily operation. If you're running a project on a daily basis, this is where you are pulling resources, so you are budgeting for that particular activity. We do run businesses, and we have daily operational expenses. We have monthly operational expenses that needs to be catered for in the operating budget. Then the cash budget is as simple as the name is. It's a cash flow, you know. A cash flow is another form of budget that looks at the relationship between the income that you are having and how you are spending it. Because you may have the operational budget, but you're not having the control of the cash flow. Because the cash flow is looking at the revenue that you have and how you're gonna spend it. And are you overspending it? Are you underspending it? Or are there processes, or are there other items that you need to defer? Are there other emergency? This controls those areas. Then the capital budget is majorly for purchasing long-term assets, or looking into, let's say, for example, you want to buy a property, a physical property like land. It's a capital investment, so it has to come under capital budget. You want to buy assets for similarly long-term assets like a bus for your business, for your school, or for your hospital. You want to put an incubator. You want to do a processing plant. These are capital budget that you need to plan for, or a building for that matter. So all this makes you to allocate your budget and control it according to the types and the segment that is being used for. So when you pull the money from one vote, you know that this vote is not going to be affected. This vote has got this vote has got this. And I know that after learning these types of budget, we are now able to differentiate different forms of budget that we have in our daily operation, daily business operation, and running of our activities. So what are the goals of budgeting? You know, there are several, but I'm bringing only a few of these goals, about 8 of them. One is that budgeting process aids in the planning of actual budget operation. You know, it helps you to do to actualize the budget operation, and it also motivates the project leaders to strive to achieve the ultimate budget goal that are being developed. Budget goals, budgeting process also provides a strong operational records of the project, because it allows you to keep track record of both the past, present, and you utilize it for the future. So it makes the work also a little easier when it comes to communication with the workers. Somebody writes a requisition, it is not in the budget, you defer the requisition. Somebody writes a requisition beyond the budgeted amount, you go into a discussion. Makes it very, very easy to communicate. Now, it also provides the ability to take corrective action through reallocation. Now, imagine there is an emergency that the organization cannot deal with without pulling this resource together. And there is this budget A that is a little redundant, but also is not as pressing, or it is not forthcoming to be spent in a short while, but there is this extra need. So it is easier for you to relocate this budget or the cash on this vote to another vote. It also enhances the resourcing by classifying or clarifying and justifying all expenses. You know, resourcing and clarifying these other expenses. You know, you could be having, you have a line of expenses that you need to work at. But if you do not justify which one am I spending on in this period, or in this cycle or in this quarter, then you miss spending so much and forgetting that you are working within the confines of a small, perhaps a small revenue that you have. Then you end up overspending without justifying or without clarifying the resources that you are having. It also motivates the project leaders to strive to achieve that what I've already mentioned, and we need to just get back to it. And this also, lastly, the budget processing gets you to know when to evaluate, how to evaluate, and helping you generally in evaluating the performance of the project leaders. Because at the end of the day, the financial analysis will indicate whether I did the right thing by implementing my budget. If I have a beautiful budget and have not implemented it in order, during the evaluation, I might either find out that I have overspent or underspent or even ignored some of the budget items that perhaps would have been worked on and we didn't give it attention. So what are some of the steps that one needs to follow in the budgeting process? One, you have to set realistic goals for your budget. This goal must align with the goal of the project. The goal must align with the goal of the vision of the organization. You should be able to identify sources of income and how you're going to spend the resources after setting your goal. Does the income correlates with the goal? As the spending or the expenses that you are planning to spend the money, the resources on, aligning to the goal, you should be in position to separate the needs, because in every budgeting process, we have needs and we have wants. So for those of you who did economics, you will understand that there's a contrast between the needs and the want. And what are the priorities I'm putting into the needs, and what are the necessities that we need for the organization, the ones that we must have for the project to run successfully. So you find in some budgets you're having a lot of luxurious expenses being levied into the budget expenses, which perhaps does not cause any impact even when you do away with them in the budgeting process. You also need to design the budget itself, make a plan, because if you do not scale down and sketch the design of your budget, what you want to do, A, B, C, D, and how you're going to do it, then you're bound to mess your expenditure. Then you need to also put the plan into action. There is designing, separating needs and wants, identifying the resources, you identify the expenses, you have set a goal. But at the end of the day, if you do not take this goal, this plan, this realistic goals that you have set forth into the actual action, then it will not be in any way useful. So you should also be in position to adjust the spending to stay on track. In the budgeting process, you will find, yes, I've budgeted for A, B, C, D, but again, the resources are not enough. So which ones am I adjusting? Which one am I giving priorities to spend on? Which one should stay on the list? Which one should be actually completely on the list, off the list? Which one should be on the reserve, just spending in case the money or the funds are realized, then we can implement A, B, C, D. So you should be in position to be flexible. The budget should be positioned to be flexible, to be adjustable, and staying within the confines of the budget. Then lastly, in the budgeting process steps is review the budget. Review your budget as much as possible. Some of you have the budget. After getting the budget is only used for getting the grants. The budget is only used for sourcing for the income. And once you receive the income, you completely forget about reviewing your budget, and you end up spending and spending. Sometimes you get excited and you spend over. Before you realize it, hey, you start to think, hey, even this one, this budget item, I have not met. Even this budget item, I have not done. So review the budget regularly to ensure you are staying within your budget. You will be asking questions as we get towards the end of this webinar. So let's look at the itemization. As I mentioned, by definition, the itemization is allocating the funds individually for a specific items and a specific amount in that expense item. So let's take a look at one of the examples of the WMI budget itemization. In this budget, you will see the revenue category, the revenue section is talking about one, the grants coming from WMI, how much? About 5,000. Then the personal contribution, we're identifying our sources of revenue. We have personal contribution, we have contribution from YMCA of about that much. We have Kentley giving us also a donation. We have Margaret Charleston giving us a donation. Somebody is giving us in-kind donation. Another one is also giving us an in-kind donation. And if it is an in-kind, you can equate it to equivalent, or you just leave it as in-kind. Now, this time we're looking at in-kind donation of Vision Stores giving us an in-kind donation worth $400. Now, we know in our budget, we have about 21 million per se, or $5,700 available for our expenses. Now we go into the expenses, and we look at how we are going to spend this budget, these funds that we have realized. Now you see that the project will buy or buy supplies for sessions, training sessions, which training sessions will take a quantity of 100 packs of paper. This 100 packets of paper, each packet will cost us that much. And if I multiply that unit of budget item will cost me about $600, then I look at the other supplies. There's other supply section of pens. You know, these are all, somebody would have put stationery. Then under stationery, in his mind or our mind, is thinking that he's going to buy pens, he's going to buy papers, he's going to buy markers under stationery. But here we're talking about budgeting itemization, and you need to do it specifically for every specific items. So we look at the marker, we look at the microphone and the speakers, we look at the rental chairs, and you can see that each item has got the quantity, the unit cost, and the amount being spent on that particular budget items. So at the end of the day, I have factored in the bank wire as the bank charge fees. I've factored in the follow-up calls as part of the expenses. I've put transportation. I've put all the necessary expenses that are likely to be incurred in this project. So after doing that pretty well, we go into the budget projection, because you already now have your sources of income very defined. You have your budget, which has already been itemized, but you need to know, when do I need to spend this? When am I going to spend on the supplies? When is the microphones needed? When are the chairs needed? Or when do I need the posters? When do I need the the banners, because all these items will be coming at different levels. Perhaps you need the posters to do the marketing. You need the banners for the actual training sessions. You need a backdrop for something else. You need agenda for that very specific day. The agenda, but perhaps is not coming as early as the poster should, and the pens will not be coming as early as the pens. I mean, as other materials maybe could be required. So let's get into the projection. And oftentimes we do provide these examples to you during the application process. We provide our monthly, our budget, monthly budget and revenue tracker that gives us a leverage to understand how to run the projection. So remember, in our budget, we talked about the supplies for sessions, and in those supplies are pens, papers, markers. And when is this needed? For example, we're looking at this as an example. In February, we are looking at this February, let's assuming this had come in February. We're looking at this stationery being needed, and this stationery will not be needed in the first month. It will be needed in the second month. Microphones will not be needed in the first month. It will be needed in the second month. But you know that there are items like hiring a deposit on the chairs. You're putting it early. Your posters, you're putting it early. The bank expenses here is coming early. Printing of posters and advertisement are coming in the first line. So all that is being run in month one should be listed. This budget line A, this budget line B, C, D is going to be the first priority to be run. And when will that income come? Those income will be coming in the first month. In the second month, we are going to handle the sessions, the training sessions. And in training sessions, we need papers, we need pens, we need A, B, C, D to sort it out. Then the third month, we still need additional materials. And in the sixth month, we'll be having another training. So you find that the drive donation is on the first month, the seminar is taking place in the second month, the screening is taking place in the third month, the donation again is taking place in the fourth month, and donation drive are coming again in the fifth month, and seminar again starting like that. So you know, you are running a seminar, you're running a budget, you're doing budget mobilization. When do I spend money on this? As per this budget examples. So if you have any question, I'll be checking into the chat room or the Q&A section to respond to them. But what are some of the takeaways from this conversation that we have just had? We have talked about the budget itemization. We have seen the examples. We have talked about the budget projection. We have seen the examples. And finally, we have to, if I've forgotten everything else, we need to look at why is it necessary for one to have a budget, you know? And what are some of those benefits that you need to take away from this conversation? One, if you have your budget, it helps you to coordinate the activities of the project. Because the benefits of budgeting is not just about having it there. It is about how it runs and how you will run it. And the business can't survive without having the budget running. And just beyond simplicity, you cannot just sustain a business without having a budget. And you cannot sustain a fluid flow of revenue or income in your daily operation, in your organization, in your project, without having a budget. So there are several great reasons to cherish your budget processes. It sets the clear targets and the expectations of the team. As you go through the budgeting process, everybody is on their every department perhaps has generated a budget, or you have generated a clear budget that you will utilize within your team and communicating to your team that this is what we are working at, these are our set goals, and this is what we expect in this budget. It aligns the resources or resource allocation to the goals of the budget of the project. And so we need to focus on that as well. It facilitates collaboration among the project team. When you have a budget, it controls everything. Yes, you have A, B, C, D, but every activity within your project is controlled by the budget because it collaborates to facilitate both departments. You're doing A, B, C, you're doing B, C wants this, the other one wants this, so you have that collaboration taking place. It sets out priorities, and not only setting out priorities, it is priorities which are tangible, because you want to stay focused, you want to remain focused on your budgeting, then you need to do fair and just budgeting process. Also, budgeting avoids difficult conversations with the staff. There are always that moment where you need to make a decision. And if you have a straight budget, it is easy to avoid that difficult conversations because you'll be straightforward and say, hey, whereas we are talking about this, but this is what the budget says. And we cannot go against this. We do not have any other sources of revenue to cover up this. So we look at that. Then finally, budgeting also, it's very vital for you for funding decisions. Most of you who have applied for these grants, successfully gone through the grants process, you know that for one to receive the grants, it is very vital that you have a very solid, fluid budgeting. And this is why we bring this session to life, because we want as many intake of grantees as possible, and this to help you prepare a strong budget for your application. It's also to help you prepare, your application so that it reduces on the turnaround time, the review time, and also your energy. Once you do a good job in the process, then eventually you will have minimum queries or feedback in your application process. So I'm glad that we had this session with us today, and I look forward to looking into or responding to some of your questions. So somebody is asking, would you share the link to the template? Yes, I will share this with you. And also, every time we keep updating this process. And I also, when you intend to apply for the grant, during the grants info session, we do a revised version and sends over as a template for you to look at as you prepare yours. But after this session, I'll be sharing this template with you so that you can start to brainstorm, start to prepare for some of you who are preparing for October, September application cycle. Somebody is asking about the presentation sharing. Yes, I will share with you. Everybody who attended this webinar, I will be sharing this material with you in an email, but also attaching the recorded version, just in case you'd want a copy of it as well. Otherwise, thank you very much. I don't seem to see many questions coming in, but I want to thank you all for turning up for this webinar, and have yourself a very splendid weekend, and looking forward to the next session. In our August webinar, we will be discussing everything about the grants materials, that the proposal guidelines that we have, the different proposal guidelines. So you'd want to be part of that. And if you intend to apply for October, September application cycle, please do attend the August webinar. We'll be having that. I have a question. Somebody saying is having a question. So if you budgeted for miscellaneous, but somehow, okay, if you budgeted for miscellaneous, but somehow an extra expenses that can't be covered by the budget comes up, does it make sense to reduce money allocated to other items to cover the unplanned and yet necessary expenses? Absolutely, yes. This is where the review of your budget regularly comes in, because you're working within the budget to see what is the available resource that I have. Miscellaneous may not be a budget per se. In a current budgeting world, we seem not to be putting miscellaneous as miscellaneous for eventuality, but by the process, you need to be comprehensive. Don't rush to submit a budget when you have not thought through several possibilities, to avoid the issue of miscellaneous. Miscellaneous is not itemized. So how many itemization, how many items are being covered in under miscellaneous? Maybe not. If it is, sometimes people use percentage, but it is deceptive. Having a miscellaneous in your budget, meaning you have not analyzed thoroughly your budget. And therefore, you are doubtful that whatever budget expenses that you have put forth perhaps may not cover everything. So try to be as comprehensive. But even if you don't have miscellaneous there is that window where you say, yes, I budgeted for A, but this item is very, very pivotal for my project implementation. Let me put this here, as long as it will not affect the project completely. It is easier to revise and make it, make it a priority to cover that and for foreseen expense. Thanks for sharing with us this great knowledge. Thank you. Thank you so much for the wonderful. Thank you, everyone who was joining, and thank you for your commentaries. And I appreciate. I pray and hope that we have learned and we will come up with better budgets in the next cycle. And I look forward to enjoying a very reduced time in the review process of your budgeting. Thank you very much. If there's no other question, would like to wish us all a very splendid weekend and a wonderful time. A minute or two for you to ask if there is any. Thank you very much, everyone. Bye.